Many times you will want to write a function that does some kind of a computation, then returns a value which can be saved in a variable for further processing. In this video, you will learn how to write functions that return a value to the caller. We have already seen many value returning functions already. Consider, for example, the math.square-root function. So what does the math square root function? Usually takes some kind of an argument and then it computes the square root. That value is later on returned and it is saved, for example, in a variable. And that variable can be later on taken for further processing. So for example, you can print the variable, or you can pass that value, or you can pass the value stored in that variable to another function, which then does some kind of a computation, and that computation returns a value, and that value is added to some other numbers or used in some other kind of expressions. So we have used already value returning functions many times, where you pass an argument to a function and that function gives back some kind of a result, and that result is used later on in some other expressions. So what we will do here, we will write our own value returning function to solve a very simple task, and this task is temperature conversion. So let's say we want to convert temperatures from Celsius into Fahrenheit. And this table here shows you a number of common Celsius temperatures and what is the equivalent of these temperatures in Fahrenheit. Now, to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit, you need to basically use this formula. So for example, think that the temperature given is 21 Celsius. And if you take 21, multiply it into 9 divided by 5, and then you add 32, you should get 69.8. So the value of the Fahrenheit would be 69.8. So let us write a function in Python that does this kind of conversion. To solve the temperature conversion problem, let us write a function that converts from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And we will start by defining a function, and we will name our function Fahrenheit, because this function is supposed to return the Fahrenheit value. Now this function will take only one parameter, and that parameter is the Celsius temperature, so that's Celsius. And then let us write the docstring for this function. Now in Spider, it automatically generates a docstring for you. So if I type these 3 triple quotes and then hit enter, you will see that it creates a template for a docstring for you. I'm not going to use this template, so I will create a simpler docstring for this function. So I'll delete all of that, and then I'll add a description. So this function basically converts from converts from Celsius to Fahrenheit, and it takes one parameter, and that is Celsius. So it expects the value of Celsius temperature in float, temperature as float. And what does it do? It basically returns the Fahrenheit value. So this is just a simple documentation. Again, the Spider template for a docstring contains more information, and for real projects probably you might want to use the template given by Spider. The next thing we want to do in here, so we need to add the statements. So I want to add the statement that actually does the actual conversion. So I'll write one variable here, and I'll call it FAH, which stands for Fahrenheit. And here I'll do the computation that does the conversion, and that computation is Celsius multiplied in 9 divided by 5 plus 32. Okay, so that's 9 divided by 5, and you add to that 32. Now here's the new thing which we haven't seen in the previous videos. If you want to write a value returning function, you need to use the return statement. Now to write a return statement, you write the keyword return, and then you write the expression for which value is calculated and returned back to the caller of this function. Now I've already done the calculation, or the required calculation to do the conversion, and I stored that in a variable, and that variable is called fah. So what I want to do, I want to return the value stored in this variable. So let's just write the variable name there, and this function will do a computation and it will return the equivalent value for this Celsius. So it will convert the Celsius into some value, and it will return the Fahrenheit temperature. Now let us try to use this function. So let's test it with few temperatures. So let's print what is the equivalent value for 21 Celsius. So 21 Celsius is equal to, and let's make the function call here. So that's Fahrenheit for 21, and that's let's copy paste this. Let me fix the spelling mistake here in Celsius. So Celsius, so that's IUS. So let me copy paste this. And what is the equivalent value? And let's find the equivalent value for 37 Celsius. So what is 37? And let us run this program now and see the result. So when you run it, it gives you that 21 Celsius is equivalent to 69.8 Fahrenheit, which is the expected value, and 37 Celsius is 98.6 Fahrenheit, which is also what we expect. Now you don't need to call the function, or you don't need to bring the value directly like this. You can also store the returned value in a variable. So for example, the freezing temperature. So what is the freezing temperature in Fahrenheit? So we know that the freezing temperature is 0 Celsius. So what is the equivalent value for 0 Celsius in Fahrenheit? So Fahrenheit of 0 Celsius, and let us print the value there of freezing temperature. So the freezing temperature is, and let's just give it that variable. So freezing temp, and if we run it, the freezing temperature is 32, and that is 32 Fahrenheit, because we have converted from 0 Celsius into Fahrenheit.